Are you looking for all the latest pro football news and content? Of course you are. Who doesn't love football? The question is, how do you get all the latest pro football news and content? There's so many different pro football podcasts on the internet. Which one do you choose? Which one is the right fit for you? Well, you go with the Cross the Middle Show, one of the fastest growing football podcasts out right now. Over the past year, we've climbed the Spotify rankings and became a show you have to listen to if you're a football fan. Find out if the Ravens will go all the way with Odell Beckham Jr. Find out if the Eagles did enough to make it back to the Super Bowl. You get all of our best stories for just $1 per month. All you have to do is sign up by clicking the link in the episode description box. I'm John Kuzma. This is the Cross the Middle Show, the place for all your latest pro football news and content. We got the running back story today. We're also going to talk a little bit about Matthew Stafford. So strap right in. Let's talk about some football. We're going to get down to it. The running back story. Josh Jacobs and Saquon Barkley will not be getting a long-term deal. I know. It's a little disappointing for these guys. It's tough to hear that two of the very best are not going to be able to get a new deal. The deadline has come and gone, which means they will have to at least play on the franchise tag. And that's disappointing. It's disheartening because these guys were exceptional. You look at Josh Jacobs, the best running back in the league last year. Saquon Barkley single-handedly carried the Giants to the playoffs and helped them win a playoff game. These owners, want to put their hands together, pray to the football gods, and hope that every single running back is Isaiah Pacheco. But that's just not reality. And, Josh Jacobs and Saquon Barkley deserve to cash in. They're worth more than $10 million. If the bar is $10 million, I don't think they're under $10 million. I think they're over $10 million. That's just the reality of the situation. They deserved a chance to cash in. They're worth every penny to their teams. I know some people say this and that. I know some people are caught up on the trends when it comes to running backs, saying this is the way the league is going. You could have that argument generally about running backs, but you can't have that argument with Josh Jacobs and Saquon Barkley. That argument doesn't work with those two guys because they're too good and they're worth more than $10 million, and the value they provide to their teams is off the charts. You look at Josh Jacobs, a guy that breaks so many tackles, a guy that creates so many opportunities for that Raiders offense because he just refuses to go down, and he always keeps the play alive and keeps it going, builds momentum for them, sets the tone for that team. So many things that he does well for the Raiders. Best running back in the league this past year, isn't able to get more than $10 million. I mean, it's insane. And then you have Saquon Barkley, like I said, carried the Giants to the playoffs. All the offense flowed through him. He got Daniel Jones paid. There's no way Daniel Jones gets his team to the playoffs or steps up in the playoffs without Saquon Barkley, getting it done first. So basically, Saquon Barkley was the main factor, and then Daniel Jones just benefited from Saquon Barkley's effort. So the fact that neither one of those guys can get paid, I understand the Tony Pollard situation a little bit more. The Cowboys might want to be patient with him to see if he can handle being an every down running back, being the feature back, now that Ezekiel Elliott isn't there anymore. So I can understand why they would only give him $10 million and franchise tag him. I don't understand Josh Jacobs. I don't understand Saquon Barkley. It doesn't add up for me. Both those guys deserve more than what they're getting. They both deserved a chance to reset the market, so to say. I believe, it's always been the next contract coming out. And I do believe there is collusion against running backs. I think these owners just want to keep running back contracts to a minimum because, running backs have a high probability of getting hurt and then a bunch of money sank into the running back position. They don't want that to happen. But at the same time, when you have someone like Josh Jacobs, when you have someone Saquon Barkley, you can't treat them like all the other running backs in the league because they're key players to their teams. they're the two examples that should have been able to cash in, should have been able to get that huge payday. They've earned it. They've earned it. Both those guys have. You can't. No, it doesn't matter what anybody says. You cannot tell me that Josh Jacobs and Saquon Barkley haven't earned it, because that's not a fair argument when it comes to those two guys. What they mean to their teams take a huge step backwards without them. You're looking at the Giants not being a playoff team. You're looking at the Raiders being one of the top picks in the draft if they don't have Josh Jacobs. They don't win 6 games without Josh Jacobs. There's no doubt about that. Not after what he brought to the table for them. So, yeah, it's so tough to watch. It's disheartening. The last thing you want to see is these guys that have went out there and laid it all on the line for their teams, did everything they could to put a winning product on the field for their teams, basically sacrifice themselves, sacrifice their health. Life after football is not going to be easy for a lot of these running backs after all the hits they've taken. To go through all that, make all those sacrifices, play the most selfless position, a position that, does everything they possibly can to help their team win, and then you turn around and say, hey, you don't deserve that big payday. You don't deserve to cash in. It just does not sit well with me. It's never going to sit well with me. I can't believe these teams are doing this to Josh Jacobs and Saquon Barkley. And remember, Josh Jacobs was in the parking lot. He was in the Raiders parking lot, chilling with Max Crosby in the car, waiting for his agent and the team to get a deal done. He was there. He showed up. He was waiting for his new deal, wanted to be a Raider for the foreseeable future, was there, going to do whatever he can to get the deal done and move forward from all this. And then it still falls through. How does that happen? Just not very cool by the Raiders or the Giants. I understand what their thinking is. I just don't think it's applied to the right players. I think, you can't have that approach with Josh Jacobs or Saquon Barkley. It's not the right approach to have. The other story we have is the Matthew Stafford story. So the Rams wanted Matthew Stafford to redo his contract, and Matthew Stafford wasn't having any part of that. Matthew Stafford was not going to redo his contract. I talked about this on a previous episode a little bit ago about how the Rams were going to seriously trade Matthew Stafford this offseason, and how Matthew Stafford, just won a Super Bowl for this team, and he's already on the cusp of being on the way out for the Rams, which is still mind-boggling to me that a guy that just won a Super Bowl is already on the cusp of being shipped out. But then again, you have to realize the Rams are in a bad situation cap-wise. They need to clear some cap space. That's why they got rid of Jalen Ramsey. They've been shopping Aaron Donald too. Matthew Stafford. That's where the Rams situation is. They're going to try to turn the page on this current regime, get younger, start fresh, and build a new core that can lead this team into the future. It's still unbelievable that Matthew Stafford, a guy they just traded all those draft picks for, traded Jared Goff for, is already about to be shipped out. Matthew Stafford is playing hardball with him. He's basically saying, I'm not going to redo my contract. I like the contract that I have. I'm sticking with it. And if you don't like it, then do something about it. That's what Matthew Stafford is saying to the Rams. I don't blame him. If I signed a contract, there's a reason we have contracts. It's because the contract, once it's signed, is supposed to be honored. Well, now the team comes to you and says, hey, we don't like this deal. We want to rip it up. We want to do a new deal with you. Well, you're sitting there saying, hey, I like this deal. The deal works for me. And guess what? You signed on the dotted line. So if I don't want to rip it up, you have to honor it. I think sometimes these players are too lenient when it comes to taking, a reduction when it comes to their pay. They'll redo their contract and take a pay cut. Is the team going to do the same for you? Is the team going to look out for you when you're in a jam and you need a little bit more money because things aren't right at home or you have something else going on or whatever it may be? Who knows? These NFL players do have a lot of money. I realize that. But, if things aren't going right on your end and you feel like you deserve a little bit more money, maybe your pay isn't up to date with the market and you're seeing players that you're better than making more money than you. Are they going to rip up the contract and redo a contract right away on your terms so that you get fair value? That isn't always the case. A lot of times these guys have to fulfill their contract, then wait for that new payday. And by then they take a step backwards and, they don't have as much value as, when they wanted to cash in. For example, let's look at the running backs. What if Josh Jacobs or Saquon Barkley have a down year? They get hurt. Now they can't cash in like they would have after that great season. We see it all the time in sports. Happens all the time. It's a two-way street. Once that contract is signed, it's signed. And if these teams aren't going to look out for their players, why would these players rip up a contract? Why would Matthew Stafford rip up a contract and redo the contract to help out the Rams when it's a good contract for him? It doesn't necessarily make sense for Matthew Stafford. Sure, he probably wants to help the Rams out. Maybe he wants to be a team player, but at the same time, it's a business. We all know it's a business. To be honest, he might not even want to help the Rams out. If they just tried to trade him, maybe he doesn't want to help the Rams out. These guys are human beings too, and when you get wronged by somebody, maybe he doesn't want to help the Rams out. And maybe he's saying, I'm sticking to my contract no matter what. We don't necessarily know what's going on in Matthew Stafford's head. I'm just, trying to take it from a perspective that Matthew Stafford is a good guy and he does seem like a team player. It does seem like he would want to help the team out. But after, they shopped him all off season, maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's a little frustrated. There's been points in time where I thought he was a little fed up with Sean McVay too. And I thought they were kind of butting heads a little bit. Maybe he's already at his wit's end with Sean McVay and is saying, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to do anything to help this team. We don't really know, like I said, what's going through Matthew Stafford's head. It could be either way, but we know one thing. He doesn't want to rip up his contract. He wants to keep his current deal. He doesn't want to redo the contract to help the team out. If that means they do shop him and eventually trade him, then so be it. It is what it is. Matthew Stafford understands that it's a business, like we said, and that, sometimes tough decisions have to be made. And the best decision for him, the best decision for his family, for him as a football player and for his career, the best decision is to stick with the deal that was signed by both sides. The Rams signed on the dotted line. They are committed to that contract. They don't get to just rip it up and redo it because they made a bunch of deals that sold out to win a Super Bowl. Yeah, you guys got a Super Bowl, and Matthew Stafford is the quarterback that delivered. Remember, he was throwing to guys that the Rams were basically pulling out of the stands at wide receiver. They were down to their third and fourth wide receiver. Joe Burrow had Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. Matthew Stafford lost Odell Beckham Jr. in that Super Bowl. He was throwing to a bunch of nobodies, and he still found a way to pull out the win. So they turned around and shop him after that. Then they want him to take a pay cut. I can see why Matthew Stafford would say, get back. I'm sticking with this current deal. There's nothing you're going to do that's going to make me change my stance on this. I'm sticking with my contract, and you guys are going to pay it. That's the way business goes sometimes. Like I said, it's a two-way street. If these teams want players to take a pay cut, then these players should be hesitant about, taking that pay cut. And if they demand more money, these teams should have to step up and, at least come to the bargaining table and negotiate something. And that doesn't always happen. So as a player, You have to protect yourself. You need financial security. Matthew Stafford feels like he has those things in his current deal. He won't be taking a pay cut. He will not be redoing his contract, and the Rams are going to have to deal with it. That's all I have for this latest episode of the Cross the Middle Show. I'm John Kuzma. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Sign up to be a member for just $1 per month for all the latest pro football news and action. You can come to the Cross the Middle Show. Look out for us anywhere podcasts are available. I'm John Kuzma. I'm signing off.